All right, hello guys, and welcome back to the Eric Reviews channel. And again, we're going to be doing another Percy Jackson video. And I want to do, before episode 8 comes out, I want to talk about episode 7 and do a video like I usually do every week, just by myself, kind of my brief thoughts on the episode. And instead of doing it how I've done in the past, where it's like everything that I thought was good and what was bad or I didn't like, I kind of just want to talk about everything that I just think is not working with Percy Jackson right now. And yes, it is maybe subject to change a little bit. If episode 8 is good, if it concludes the story well for this first season, maybe I'll take back some of these things. I don't really think so, because I think a lot of what I think makes Percy Jackson great for me has been lost. And so I want to talk about episode 7, specifically what things it continues to do that I just find terrible, that it's just taking away from what the actual story of Percy Jackson is. And so let's talk about episode 7. I think right away, one of my biggest criticisms that I've continuously had, I think, you know, I've seen some commenters or people that have watched these videos that really make some good points, is that the adventure, the mystery, the magical element of Percy Jackson seems to be completely gone. There is no intrigue. There is no surprise anymore. There's no, oh, what are we walking into? They already know. I talked about this in my episode breakdown on Friday, but every single time our group is going into some sort of conflict, they already know what the monster is, what the area is. They already know how they should be reacting to it. It's just so frustrating because, like, yes, Medusa, it makes sense that they would figure out who she is before they even met her. But the others, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to me how they instantly know what the Lotus Hotel is, right? How they instantly know who Krusty is, someone that is not very well known in Greek mythology at all, right? All of the interesting aspects of Percy Jackson when it comes to, oh, our characters have to make clever and smart decisions in moments of crisis is just gone, right? The Lotus Hotel, it's basically Hermes telling them, oh yeah, you guys need to get out. Or they already know what it is before they go into it. It just takes away everything, all the momentum you have going into an episode, because instead of us as the audience with our characters trying to figure out what's going on, why does this hotel seem so perfect? Is this some sort of trap? How do we break the trap with our characters? We already know what the trap is. And so a lot of the mystical, the interesting parts of this series have just been diminished. And then it even hurts our characters more, because our characters are sitting here, it's like, how do you guys know this already? Before even going in, you already know what it is. And it makes it even glaringly obvious with a character like Grover. Grover is a plot device that is just there for exposition. He adds nothing to the story as of right now. Maybe episode 8, they'll do something really big with Grover's character, but as of right now, he isn't a character. If you take him away after episode 3, right? So let's say at the end of episode 3, he brings them together and then gets hit by a truck. Nothing in the story changes outside of, oh, our characters might not actually believe that it's Ares that had some involvement in the lightning bolt plot, or that Clarice stole the bolt. Like, all of that would be different, I guess, right? It would just be our characters going in kind of more blind into the underworld, and when they get to the underworld, they're like, oh wait, Hades wasn't involved in this at all. But they would still already realize that Ares was the one that had the lightning bolt because of the backpack, right? Ares is the one that gave it to them. So all of that would still say somewhat the same. And so my point still stands. It's like, what has Grover added to this show past episode 3? Like, yes, he was someone that helped Annabeth and Percy come together, but after that point, they haven't needed Grover. If anything, he's been to a detriment of the story, right? And this is another thing, is like, I'm going to make a video on this after episode 8, depending on how that goes, but how do you adapt a book correctly? Percy Jackson, at multiple occasions in this show so far, have done it very poorly. They've taken the rough outline of what the story is in the book, and they've changed it on execution. They've changed, okay, what is a character going to act like? How do they get there? They've changed those things while keeping the setting and a lot of our characters the same, but also changing those characters. So when you take a look at like Grover, for instance, episode 7 is just frustrating because you get there and it's like, oh yeah, we changed this whole Pearl thing, where it's actually a really big plot. And I really got a great comment on one of my last videos about the significance of the pearls, right? It's supposed to be this moment in which they realize they have 3 pearls. They can't all get back. Okay, and so this kind of plays out the same in the episode, but they change it and actually worsen it. They do this a lot, where they change something and it only makes it worse. But the point is that Percy comes to this realization that he is going to have to fail, right? That's part of the prophecy, right? That he is going to fail to save what he wants the most, or he loves the most, or what he cares about the most. And it's about overcoming that fatal flaw of Percy always being the hero, putting his life on the line. And it's something that really comes into play later down the story as well, especially in book 5. And so when you kind of take that away, because in reality, if it wasn't for Grover having one stupid moment, there wouldn't be any need for this, right? That was never the intent. And so it just feels like over and over and over again, we get stupid moments of changing things for no reason, right? There's no reason to change that. There's no reason to change this pearl thing. Just stick with the 3 pearls thing. It doesn't matter. Then you don't have to come up with some convoluted way in which Grover loses a pearl. It's just simple things like that. It is completely the reason that this show, in my opinion, is either mediocre or failing, depending on who you ask. Some people, if you're a casual reader, or not a casual reader, if you're a casual viewer, you've never read Percy Jackson, you don't know the alternative, you probably might actually like this show. I still don't think it's like a 9 out of 10, but I think you might be leaning more towards like a 7 or an 8 out of 10. But still, the things that are holding it back from being that 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 for even like a more of a casual viewer is the writing. The writing in this show is just not good enough. The acting is very good, right? You can tell all the actors are doing what they're being given pretty well. I might have issues with the way characters are being portrayed, but that's because of the writing, not because of the actors. All the actors are doing really well. I think the casting was very good in this show. I think the music has been fantastic. Visually, the episodes have, especially the last episode, episode 7, looked pretty good. I think the cuts have still been very jarring, very boring transitions, very bland transitions. I think one of the best shows when it comes to transitions is Better Call Saul. The way that we're able to go from scene to scene and how they can even connect or even have little Easter eggs as to why we're doing that. And so episode 7, I don't think is the worst offender of that, because I think episode 7 had some interesting ways of doing it, right? Where we're going from the flashbacks to our present day with our crew, and the way we kind of cut from like a door being opened or slammed or something like that into like Grover hitting the ground in the underworld. It all actually was very interesting. So I liked that. It wasn't as good as it could be, but it was definitely better than the rest of the season. And so you sit here, and I think the biggest problem I had with this episode was Hades. And it just seems like there's so many times right now where they're making characters just jokes. They're making them Marvel like characters. And I'm just sitting here and I'm like, Hades is not the character that he's on screen. Like, you can debate this with me, but you're not going to change my mind. Hades in Greek mythology or in Percy Jackson is described as being more serious, being someone that has a temperament. He is someone that you don't like trifle with. You take him very seriously. He's one of the most powerful beings in Greek mythology. And in the show, he doesn't have that at all. He doesn't have a presence of being this high, overpowering being that would strike you down at just the littlest thing. Being someone that is just losing his crap because his relic has been stolen, as well as this war is being blamed on him. Percy's blaming him for things that he hasn't done. And all of that's important for the story. It's important for Hades going forward. It seems so short-sighted, because you're sitting here and you're going, okay, now this amazing Hades plot and character arc that we see going all the way to book 5 is almost completely gone, because they stripped him away of what made the character interesting. And I know in book 1, he's not the most sophisticated character. He's really just supposed to be the bad guy, the villainous character. But those things that he says, the things that are introduced in his first book with his character, they are pivotal to understanding him, another character that's going to come up. It's a big plot in book 4, and then even in book 5, it kind of gets paid off. So it just seems very short-sighted. It doesn't feel like we're building towards that big moment. And so, I think for me, when you look at episode 7, it was an episode that I think disappointed on so many levels, because it was, in my opinion, really the climax of the story. For me, it's where I was at my most entertained when it came to the first Percy Jackson book. And yes, There's going to be things going into episode 8 that are awesome, but they were never the thing I enjoy the most about it, because a lot of the character writing, a lot of those big moments for our characters happen in this stretch of episode 6 and 7 and what make the book for me, right? Episode 8 is really about a lot of those like payoffs and wrapping up the story, the resolution, and some action. All that's really good, but it was never the thing that hooked me into Percy Jackson. I'm someone that always cares more about character writing, believing that this is an actual character, having them have legitimate struggles and things they overcome, or a character flaws or things that they're good at, and how those things are put to test. And so I think they've done a solid job. I think Percy specifically has had a very good character arc when it comes to episode 1 to now. I think they've just missed on certain things. I think other characters have fallen by the wayside. Like, Annabeth has had a decent character arc, right? It's not been great. There's been things I've not liked. I didn't like the starting point of Annabeth's character in the first couple episodes. I think she's definitely gotten better. I think her being with Percy longer has helped her, specifically her character dynamic with him. Just adding a layer of, like, Annabeth is a character so unlikable in the first couple episodes that pairing her with Percy, who's very likable, he's very easy to root for, you understand his character a lot, it kind of starts to rub off on Annabeth, makes her a bit more likable and lighthearted and stuff like that. It gets her to open up a bit more, which is good. That's just not the case with Grover, because Grover's rarely on screen. He's always set to the wayside with the B plots, the plot we don't care about. And so, yeah, I think the last thing I want to talk about, and I hope they don't do this in episode 8, is splitting up of our characters. We continuously, in the last 3 episodes, have done this where we split our characters up. Last episode, it was Annabeth. Annabeth was not part of our main plot, which was so stupid and mind-blowing to me. You get finally to the big reveal, right, of what's kind of going on, that Hades is not really part of this whole plot of the Bolt. And Annabeth isn't even there. It just is so stupid, because you could have this whole thing where, yes, Annabeth has regret. She's stuck and weighed down because of her regret. Have our characters then find a way to release her from that, showing that they're clever. You could even show their skills. I even mentioned specifically you could have Grover using some of his magic, his abilities, to help, like, free her or release her. And so you still would have that point there, that Annabeth has some regret. She has some things that she is not proud of, or some decisions that she wishes she had done differently, while having her be part of the main story, which is important given that we're in the final part of the season and you're sidelining a character for an entire episode. And yeah, so that's kind of what I wanted to talk about here with episode 7. There's more I could have talked about. Me and my friend Logan go into really a ton of depth. So if you want to see like a full breakdown, we go for about an hour 20 in our episode 7 breakdown. And yeah, we'll be talking about episode 8. It'll come out on Friday. You know, really hoping it's a good, strong episode to end out the season, because the last 2 have just really left a bad taste in my mouth, where I felt like the first part of the season, or the first half of the season, it had its flaws, but it was still good, right? It was definitely like a 7 out of 10. You know, there was things I really enjoyed from the season, and then as we've kind of gotten to like that episode 5, episode 6, episode 7, it's kind of fallen apart. And so if I hope they end on a strong note, because I think how you finish is very important. If this season finishes on a strong note, you know, you're gonna have more people excited going into the second season. If you finish on a whimper, which unfortunately I think is what could happen given the way I've seen the writing going, they've lost my trust. It's not a good look, right? It's not a good look. I mean, if you think about your legacy and things to come forward. But thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys all enjoy, and I'll see you guys all back on Friday for the big analysis and our final review of episode 8.